$19 million, 13 years of investigation, hundreds of suspects, international scandals, and even a meeting with the Pope. All of this is tied to the disappearance of one 3-year-old girl. Madeleine McCann vanished from a hotel room in Portugal, and her case became known as the crime of the century. Why did the simple disappearance of a child capture the world's attention? Could her parents really have killed their own daughter, as the Portuguese police once claimed? And why, after 13 years, did a new suspect appear, the German pedophile Christian Brückner? In this video, we've gathered all the information, and we'll try to answer the main question: is Madeleine McCann still alive? In May 2007, Kate and Jerry McCann chose to spend a week-long holiday in the resort town of Praia da Luz, located on Portugal's southern coast. The area was especially popular among visitors from the United Kingdom, making it a natural choice for a family with 3 children. English was spoken far more often than Portuguese there, and the resort had even earned the informal nickname Little Britain. For guest convenience, 3 children's clubs were available, along with nanny services during the hours when the playrooms were closed. The group consisted of 8 adults, all medical professionals, and 8 children, including 3-year-old Madeleine and her 2-year-old twin siblings. Their holiday followed a set routine. Each morning and afternoon, the family had meals together in the apartment, after which the children went to the kids' club. In the evenings between around 8:30 and 9, the adults gathered for dinner at a nearby restaurant, leaving the children in the apartments, checking on them periodically. Only one family had a baby monitor. The restaurant was just 50 meters away, and the McCanns kept the same table throughout their stay, from which they could see the windows of their apartment. The children's bedroom faced the garden and parking lot, located near the back door, with a single window looking out onto the lot. Madeleine's bed was positioned at the far end of the room, while the twins slept in travel cots. She lay on a regular bed with her pink stuffed cat toy and was dressed in a short-sleeved white and pink pajama set. On the evening of May 3rd, around 8:30 p.m., Kate and Jerry went out for dinner at the restaurant, leaving the sliding patio doors pulled to but unlocked. During the meal, the parents and their friends took turns checking on the children. At 9:05 p.m., Jerry entered the bedroom. According to him, everything seemed calm, and Madeleine was asleep in her bed. Still, he noticed something unusual. The bedroom door he had left slightly ajar was now wide open. Thinking little of it, he pulled the door back to its original position and returned to dinner. A little later, Kate was planning to check on the children herself, but their friend Matthew Oldfield offered to do it while he was looking in on his own kids in the nearby apartment. Kate agreed. When he entered the McCann's flat, everything seemed quiet and he left, though he later admitted he hadn't actually checked whether Madeleine was in her bed. Around 10 p.m., Kate went to see the children herself. As she entered the apartment, the door slammed shut as if caught by a draft. When she reached the bedroom, she noticed that the window had been opened from the outside. The twins were asleep in their travel cots. Madeleine's stuffed toy was still on the bed, but the girl herself was gone. After quickly searching the apartment and realizing her daughter was missing, Kate ran back to the restaurant, shouting that Madeleine had been taken. According to friends who saw Kate and Jerry immediately after Madeleine went missing, the parents were in a state of utter shock. The girl's mother broke down in tears almost instantly and seemed to fall into a daze, while her husband ignored everyone around him, checking under every parked car in the desperate hope of finding his daughter. The search continued until 5 a.m., and only after repeated persuasion did the parents agree to rest. By that time, the police had already begun a thorough examination of the apartment. During the initial search of the apartment, the Portuguese police acted unprofessionally and made several serious mistakes. For instance, border authorities were not alerted until 24 hours after the investigation had begun, eliminating the chance of intercepting the girl's potential abductors. Investigators also failed to promptly collect fingerprints, neglected to secure the crime scene, and ultimately did not gather enough evidence. About half an hour after Madeleine's disappearance, large-scale searches began, involving dozens of staff and holidaymakers who combed the resort and surrounding areas. For nearly 6 hours, they hoped the little girl had simply wandered off out of curiosity and would soon be found. But by dawn, it became clear that something far more serious had happened. The Portuguese police questioned the parents, restaurant staff, and the family's friends, while also searching the nearby grounds. Meanwhile, the first reports of the missing child had already appeared in the British media. Friends of the McCanns had contacted journalists, believing that public attention would pressure the Portuguese authorities to act more effectively. Instead, the move backfired. Investigators felt the media spotlight was damaging the case and began looking at the parents with suspicion. The tension only grew as Kate and Jerry repeatedly criticized the police for negligence and incompetence. Eventually, the McCanns themselves were treated as the prime suspects. 4 months after Madeleine's disappearance, investigators developed a theory suggesting that her parents might have been involved in the tragedy. Kate and Jerry, both doctors by profession, were suspected of accidentally giving their daughter an excessive dose of sedatives to ensure she would stay asleep until they returned. Fearing the consequences, the police believed they could have hidden her body and staged an abduction. Later, according to this version, the couple allegedly moved the body to a secret location and buried it. This theory was largely based on the alerts of specially trained dogs. One detected the scent of cadaver decomposition inside the McCann's apartment, while another picked up the same scent in a car the family had rented 24 days after Madeleine went missing. Additional analyses of hair and fabric samples found in both the flat and the vehicle further raised suspicions among the Portuguese authorities. Later, investigators admitted that neither the DNA results nor the alerts from the sniffer dogs could be considered solid evidence. The main reason was that in around 70% of cases, dogs confused the scent of human remains with something else, while the DNA testing was deemed too imprecise. Meanwhile, witnesses came forward claiming they had seen a man that evening carrying what appeared to be a sleeping child. Suspicion soon fell on 30-year-old Robert Murrah, a British man who lived just 3 minutes away from the McCann's apartment at his mother's house. He was named the prime suspect, but investigators ultimately failed to find any substantial evidence against him. Later, another tourist revealed that he had been returning to his apartment that night carrying his own daughter. Upon review, it became clear that he was the man the witnesses had mistaken for an abductor. As a result, all charges against Robert Murrah were dropped, and he even won compensation from British tabloids that had wrongly branded him a criminal. Time went by, but Kate and Jerry never gave up hope that their daughter might still be alive. They reached out to British authorities, met with the US Attorney General, had an audience with the Pope, and appeared on numerous talk shows. The couple also established the Madeleine Fund, which raised nearly £2 million within its first year. Meanwhile, British investigators ran a parallel inquiry alongside the Portuguese police, collecting evidence and conducting interviews, yet found few meaningful leads. By 2008, the Portuguese authorities officially closed the case. In 2011, the UK's Home Secretary Theresa May ordered a new inquiry, which was officially named Operation Grange. A special team of top British investigators was assembled to try and unravel the mystery behind Madeleine McCann's disappearance. Substantial funds were allocated to support the investigation. Detectives interviewed dozens of witnesses in both Portugal and the United Kingdom. The head of the task force, Chief Inspector Andy Redwood, emphasized that there was still a real chance of finding the girl alive. During the operation, authorities examined individuals with criminal records involving crimes against children, restaurant employees, and tourists who had stayed at the resort. Yet none of the investigative leads could be confirmed. Over the years, the detectives also received numerous reports from people claiming to have seen Madeleine. Most of these alleged sightings came from the United Kingdom, the United States, Switzerland, Mexico, and Singapore. In total, the investigators looked into more than 100 such tips, but the information was either deemed unreliable or classified. Although the theory suggesting Madeleine's parents were involved in her disappearance had been repeatedly dismissed, Gonçalo Amaral, who led the initial Portuguese police investigation, continued to support it. In July 2008, he released a book, followed by a documentary titled The Truth of the Lie, in which he argued that the McCanns had staged their daughter's disappearance to cover up her death. Amaral described his book as a compilation of official evidence, but Madeleine's relatives condemned it as absurd and filled with falsehoods. Nevertheless, the publication turned into a bestseller, reportedly earning the author and the publishers over $1 million. Following the book's release, Amaral frequently appeared in television interviews, reiterating his claims that Madeleine's parents were responsible and insisting that the girl's body was still hidden in Praia da Luz. Later, he even suggested that the parents had secretly cremated their daughter in a nearby church. Among the many theories considered, one suggested that Madeleine had been abducted by a wealthy family. Investigators, however, regarded this version as highly unlikely. The girl disappeared just 9 days before her 4th birthday, an age at which children clearly recognize their relatives and would hardly accept strangers as a new family. Another hypothesis proposed that Madeleine had become an accidental victim of a burglary. According to this idea, intruders broke into the apartment, but the girl woke up and saw them. Fearing exposure, the burglars supposedly decided to take her away, yet this explanation appears deeply unconvincing. First, if the criminals truly wanted to eliminate a witness, why remove her from the room instead of acting on the spot? Furthermore, it is difficult to believe they were so terrified that they thought a small child glimpsing them in a darkened room could later recall and identify their faces. A British journalist put forward his own version of the events. According to him, Madeleine, upon waking and realizing her parents were not there, might have left the apartment on her own in search of them. It was at that moment, he suggested, that strangers could have spotted and abducted her. He supported this theory by pointing to the position of the shutters. When the police arrived, they were closed, and they could only be opened from the inside. No signs of forced entry were found, either on the shutters or on the front door. Journalist Collins concluded that intruders had not actually entered the apartment. Meanwhile, D. Jerry McCann insisted that his daughter could not have gone outside alone, since she would have had to open the front door, pass through the sliding doors, get past the metal gate equipped with child safety locks, and then close everything behind her. In response, the journalist argued that the parents were not even aware that the shutters could not be opened from the outside. At first, the McCann couple stated that the shutters on the apartment windows had been left open. If Madeleine really had gone outside in her parents' absence, she might have become the victim of an accident. At that time, just 18 meters from the building where the family was staying, workers were repairing a drainage system. To do this, they had dug a trench about 1.8 meters deep and 1.2 meters wide. There was a possibility that the girl could have fallen into the pit and lost consciousness. The following day, when the trench was filled in, she might simply have gone unnoticed. This theory was considered both by the construction foreman and the police, but no evidence was ever found to support it. Among the suspects was even British politician and author Clement Freud, the grandson of the famous Sigmund Freud. He had been on friendly terms with the McCann family and owned a house in Praia da Luz. However, Freud himself had died back in 2009. Years later, in 2016, several women came forward accusing him of sexually abusing minors in the past. Still, no concrete evidence ever linked him to Madeleine's disappearance, and this theory was eventually dismissed by investigators. There is a theory suggesting that Madeleine was abducted and later sold into slavery. Witness testimonies mentioned two unidentified men seen near the hotel on the day she went missing. It was speculated that they might have been members of an international criminal network that kidnapped children to satisfy the demands of wealthy, depraved clients. Rumors also claimed that this organization had extensive connections, possibly even within the Portuguese police. This, in turn, could explain why the investigation appeared so ineffective and why the official hypotheses presented by law enforcement seemed so far from the truth. By 2015, the number of detectives working on Madeleine's case had been reduced from 28 to just 4. By 2017, the total amount spent by the British authorities on the investigation had surpassed $19 million. The public repeatedly criticized the government for such enormous expenses on a case that, in many people's eyes, seemed less and less likely to be solved with each passing year. At that point, it truly appeared that the chances of uncovering the truth were gone, and that the investigation had reached a dead end. Yet, as it later turned out, that assumption was wrong. In 2020, not only investigators from Portugal and the United Kingdom, but also representatives of the German police joined the investigation. It was the German authorities who made a sensational statement. 13 years after the girl's disappearance, a likely suspect had been identified. His name was initially withheld so as not to jeopardize the investigation. However, later the German police revealed everything. The main suspect was Christian Brückner, previously convicted of crimes against children. At the same time, investigators voiced the darkest version. Most likely, the girl is no longer alive. In May 2007, just one day before Madeleine vanished, Brückner confided to one of his former lovers that he had something planned for the following day. He described it as a dreadful task, but said he was obliged to carry it out. 3 years later, another acquaintance jokingly remarked that Brückner bore a striking resemblance to one of the composite sketches of the potential abductor of the girl, even asking if he had been the one behind her disappearance. On that occasion, the man gave no direct reply, he merely shrugged indifferently. Prosecutor Hans Christian Wolters, who oversees the investigation, revealed that the police had uncovered another crucial piece of evidence. According to him, the suspect had engaged in online conversations with another sadist, during which they discussed the abduction of a child. Wolters believes that Brückner kidnapped the girl, assaulted her, and ultimately killed her. Furthermore, he is convinced that this crime was far from the only one the man committed. At the time Brückner was officially named the prime suspect, he was already serving a prison sentence for the rape of a 72-year-old American woman in Portugal. German investigators began actively examining Brückner's potential involvement in Madeleine's disappearance. During the process, they excavated 2 plots of land owned by the man, and in both cases the discoveries were significant. Beneath one of the properties, they uncovered a kind of cellar, which the press quickly dubbed a secret room. Authorities did not disclose what was found inside, but emphasized that it was considered a highly important lead. On the second property, investigators unearthed a buried box containing videotapes. While the contents were never revealed, it is believed that the recordings may have shown disturbing footage involving other victims of Brückner. Despite these developments, Brückner himself remained silent regarding the accusations about Madeleine's abduction. It is known that immediately after his name was made public, Brückner was placed in solitary confinement to protect him from other inmates. There remains a possibility that he might one day confess, offering some relief to the parents who have been searching for answers for 14 years. Even if no confession is made and investigators fail to uncover conclusive evidence, the majority of authorities are convinced that Brückner was involved in the girl's disappearance. Naming him as the prime suspect reignited public interest in the 14-year-old case, giving hope that the investigation might once again receive sufficient funding. If Madeleine is still alive, she would have turned 22 years old on May 12, 2025. Her parents continue to believe she is out there somewhere, though in recent years they have shown less public activity, focusing instead on their two other children. Nevertheless, Madeleine's mother still buys her gifts for every holiday, holding on to the hope that one day she will be reunited with her daughter. When the case once again captured the world's attention, it drew not only journalists and investigators but also members of the film industry. In 2019, the popular streaming platform Netflix announced the release of a documentary series dedicated to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. The creators promised to present both the official version of events and alternative theories, examining every detail of this high-profile investigation. The release of the series generated immense interest from viewers around the globe. Many revisited the case, while for some, it was their first introduction to it. For Madeleine's parents, the project was a painful reminder of the tragedy, but they expressed hope that the widespread attention to the film might shed new light on the circumstances surrounding their daughter's disappearance. During the years-long investigation into Madeleine McCann's disappearance, media outlets occasionally reported cases of women claiming to be the missing girl. One of the most notable incidents involved a 21-year-old Polish woman, Julia Wendell, real name Julia Faustina, who in February 2023 posted on social media asserting that she was Madeleine McCann. She based her claim on physical resemblance, gaps in her childhood memories, and suspicions that her documents had been falsified. She also reached out to Madeleine's parents, requesting a DNA test. However, the results disproved her claim, confirming that she was not the missing girl. Despite this, Julia continued to insist that she had been abducted and switched. This case drew significant public and media attention, but experts and investigators believe such claims are more likely attempts to gain attention rather than genuine efforts to solve the mystery of Madeleine's disappearance. Nevertheless, these incidents highlight how deeply this tragedy has affected people worldwide and how enduring the public's interest in finding the missing girl remains. In recent years, the investigation into Madeleine McCann's disappearance concluded with the trial of the prime suspect, Christian Brückner. German and British authorities gathered all available evidence and thoroughly analyzed the clues to uncover the truth about the events that occurred 14 years ago. The court proceedings provided a comprehensive conclusion to the investigation and shed light on many aspects of the case. If you want to watch a video fully dedicated to the investigation, the collected evidence, and the trial, be sure to leave a comment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the episode.